talk a little bit about the firmware. It's really simple. It's just basically a loop. This is actually a little bit different than the way it is now. The top line, it says there's a base frequency at 400 hertz. I halved that, brought it down an octave because it's less annoying. So it's at 200 hertz. The Atmel chip has 2 timers in it. I use one for one ear and one for the other ear. I leave one ear exactly the same all the time, 200 hertz. When I want to change to, when I want to present beta, this one is 200 hertz plus beta frequencies, so 214 hertz, and you perceive the beta, and at the same time, this is pulsing at beta frequencies, 14 hertz. When I switch to alpha, this stays at 200 hertz. This goes to 211 hertz for alpha, and you perceive the alpha binaural beat, and the lights change to 11 hertz. So light and sound are always synchronized in this brain machine. So in the loop, it just goes through a brainwave table, and here's an example of the first 2 elements of the brainwave table. Start with B for beta and it says 600,000, divide by 10,000 and you get seconds, and I did that for reasons I'm not going to get into now, but that works. So beta for 60 seconds, alpha for 10 seconds, and you can do the same thing for theta and delta. It's a T or a D, and whatever time you like, down to 10,000ths of a second accuracy. So it's just a loop that does just goes through the brainwave table and plays each brainwave element. So that's what I call each line of the table. So after it goes through the whole sequence, I have a 0 here, which tells the firmware loop quit. And then the firmware puts the microcontroller into a low power state called sleep mode. That's really all there is to it. The hardware is really similar to the mini POV kit. Everything from here on is exactly the same as the mini POV, but instead of having all of these be LEDs for waving around and making pictures and words or whatever, not really using these top ones, these 2 LEDs are just like the mini POV, except they're extended around and put in front of your eyes. These, instead of going to LEDs, they're going to headphone jack to speakers, and the pulsing is sound then. And of course, the firmware is telling it to do it all at brainwave frequencies. So that's really all there is to it. It uses an internal oscillator. All that stuff on the top is for programming. It's just 6 parts and a serial port connector. So take this opportunity to talk a little bit about meditation. There's a lot of ways to meditate, and you can't do it wrong. So if you're playing with the brain machine or just on your own, cool. There's a lot of ways to do it. Just breathe and pay attention to your breath. If you wander off, just come back to your breath. Or just follow your thoughts. And if you find yourself focusing on one thought, then just remind yourself to just follow whatever thought. And a lot of interesting things can come up that way. Another thing is to focus on a certain kind of thought, like a problem or an intention. What is it you want to accomplish, or what kind of problem you have, like with a roommate or a boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, and just see if any kind of creative solutions come up. And of course, like with everything else, you can hack it, so make up your own way. What kind of life do you want to live? Live it. So, yeah. I'm going to open it up to some Q&A, but, I have some basic improvements. I'm just going to leave that for the public record and move on. I forgot to this. So what's it like? A lot of you have tried it, and I'm just going to show you what it's like for some people. Some of these people may look familiar. This is going on for quite a while over the last few days. Yeah, and here's a little thing from Make Magazine website.
Let me show you what this looks like when you put them on. There's the glasses, and here's the headphones. And then let's turn it on. So there you go. That's what you'll hear and see when you put these on. I'm Bree Pettis here with Mitch Altman, and this project is in Make Magazine Volume 10. Go ahead and get it, get the parts, make it on up, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mitch. Okay, talking about consciousness, as you might have noticed, we've had one pass out. The guy's okay. He's being treated well by our medics. He did not drink enough water. Drink more water. He would need about, I guess it's more than 2 liters, less than 4 liters a day. Not just Mate, not just beer, because these have the opposing effect. Well. So much for this message. Now, do you have any questions?
Stand-ups, yes. Yeah. Well, hello?
Hi.
Hi, I was wondering, could you record your own brain waves? Do they transmit around your head, or? Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, well, electroencephalograms until recently were really expensive laboratory instruments, tens of thousands of dollars long ago, but now you can go to OpenEEG project on the web and you can build your own for about $200 US. It's totally open source hardware and software, and it's really cool. So if you're interested in that, check that out. I'm building my own now, and I'm not done with it yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that as well.
Okay, thank you a lot.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I was just wondering if you'd considered connecting the output of OpenEEG to the input of one of your brain machines.
Yeah, I definitely have considered that. It would be really cool to have feedback added to this thing. So depending on what you're experiencing, your brainwaves change, which then can feed back to the machine, which changes what external frequencies are going in. And and that'll then affect your brainwaves, etc. So maybe we could have it so that you have a target state that you want to be in, like sleep or awake, and it would help you get there really quickly and effectively. That's something I've been thinking of.
Hey Mitch, just a quick observation. You're going to sell the Brain Machine as a commercial product, and obviously TV Be Gone was a commercial product, but you're teaching people to make it for free as well. So you're my favorite example of what open source is all about, and I think that's really neat.
Thank you.
I think it would be interesting to see what would happen if you hooked one of these up to OpenEEG and then put the glasses on somebody else.
I'll try it.
Yeah. Do you think that there will be a time when the brainwave machine replaces the television, when whole families, instead of getting dumped in front of the television, will sit on the sofa with psychedelic brainwave machines on their head?
I don't think that's going to happen. I was in India a while back, and I certainly didn't intend on, I didn't go to India to go to ashrams, but one thing leads to another, and I meet cool people, and they go to an ashram, and it's like, what the hell, I'll go to an ashram. And I go to this yoga ashram, and it's camp. It's yoga camp for these little kids, and normally I don't like being around 500 little kids who are 5 years old and screaming, but these weren't screaming, they were doing yoga the whole time, rather than baseball and getting beaten up for going out into left field. I don't know if this means anything to someone who isn't American. Anyways, summer camp for many American little geeky kids is total torture. In India, they send their kids to yoga, and they were so happy and calm, and the parents would come by to pick them up after 2 weeks, and they meditate together, and it's so refreshing to have families do something useful together rather than watching TV.
Okay. Have you actually thought about putting those machines to use as a medicinal thing, like for people who suffer from epilepsy or something like this? I mean, you can maybe change the frequencies that are emitted by this thing and maybe help them this way instead of making it worse.
Yeah, that would be really cool. You know, there's been research around all of this. I'm really not a medical researcher, although I am definitely doing a bunch of research on this with me and my friends and friends of friends who are volunteering as guinea pigs. And I actually would like to do some double-blind kind of studies to, as I'm developing my more complex version of the brain machine with the OpenEEG, measuring things to make it so that people would synchronize really well, a maximum number of people synchronizing really well. So that's like the extent of my kind of research. There are people, there's one guy on the Make Magazine blog, a lot of people there have asked questions of me, and I've answered bazillions of questions. It's been really fun. One guy has used his to alleviate headaches that he gets all the time. Just doing low frequency theta and delta has helped him alleviate these headaches that he always gets that are kind of debilitating. So I don't know about epilepsy, if it can help or not. I'm not really up on that. There have been people who said it's alleviated depression, and there was one other physical ailment that I remember or read about, but I can't remember right now. So more research probably could be done by people who are into doing that.
Yeah, hi. I made my first brain machine a while back, about 10 years ago, I think, at a Dutch hackers camp. We used parallel interface there. It's just about the same time I'd also been testing out other more conventional brain machines of the chemical kind. But since then, I've also been reading a lot about how the American intelligence agencies have also been looking at these ways of controlling our minds. And I'm wondering if you've considered that perhaps the brain machine might be used for negative effects, such as playing Barney music to Guantanamo Bay prisoners, keeping them held in tin boxes.
Yeah, well, the people who run my government always try to think of how to use anything for their own means. And several things that I've worked on in my life have ended up being used in the military, even though there was no military application, or so I thought. You know, the first job I ever had in electronics was making a video game on an Apple II, and it got converted into a killer helicopter training simulator. You know, and when I worked on this really cool video generator back before video cards were available for PCs, for computers, the military bought it so they can make spiffy graphics for selling their fighter bombers to Congress, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It's just some of the more bright people, that's where their minds go. And in fact, a lot of leftover research that I made use of along the years for learning about this kind of stuff is left over from the Soviet and American Secret Service agencies. They tried to use this stuff for mind control, and it didn't work because you can't make somebody meditate when they don't want to. What's that? Yeah, well, maybe we could, you know, we would benefit if we could make George W. meditate a little bit, but Self-reflection